Hi guys, so the other night I watched The Monkey, but was it really good monkey business or simply a film I did not give a monkey's about? Welcome to part 36 of my Stephen King adaptations review series. You'll find all my other episodes for this in my Stephen King playlist. And it's my intention that one day I will cover all of King's adaptations, both the films and the TV shows. Yeah, a very ambitious undertaking, but maybe one day I will achieve my goal. So, The Monkey was a story that King wrote in 1980, I believe, and it was most widely released as part of the Skeleton Crew collection that came out in 1985, which just so happens to be one of the King books that I've read the most. I've definitely read it several times over. I bought it in a car boot sale in the 90s for £1. And I can remember starting to read it actually at that car boot sale. I was sat there flicking over the first few pages as my mum was trying to sell stuff right next to me. Cool memories. Probably the most famous story in the collection is The Mist, which has its own film and TV show now, and The Monkey is also in there. But I never would have guessed that this would one day get its own movie, because there's not a lot of story in it, to be honest. It's about this toy monkey, as you can probably guess, and it's got like a drum over its neck, and it can hit this drum if you wind it up at the back, but it causes its owner no end of problems. Death and destruction seem to follow it anywhere. It's a little bit like Annabelle in a way, I suppose, but I would have thought that it would be more suitable for a short film that's part of a horror anthology. Like if they ever did another Creepshow movie, The Monkey would be absolutely perfect. But a movie? Really? And yet when I first heard about it, I was intrigued. I was like, oh, really? How are they going to stretch that out into a movie? I'm very curious. I saw the trailer for this in the cinema, and it must have been a period where I was watching loads of movies at the cinema, because I seem to remember watching the Monkey trailer like 6 or 7 times, and it was a good trailer, a little bit light in tone, but still, it still seemed like a serious horror movie. Once you got to the end of the trailer, like the word "the monkey" came on the screen, and ding, like some really serious music, and I was left in no doubt that this was going to be a good film. Hopefully, a little bit of black humor, that was the hint in the trailer, but only on a kind of like Ready or Not sort of level. Nothing too bad. Well, how wrong was I? Unfortunately, I'm not somebody who does very well with horror comedies. I just don't like those two genres being mixed. It's not that I don't have a sense of humour, it's just that if I sit down to watch a horror film, I want horror, I don't want comedy. If I sit down to watch a comedy film, I want to have a few laughs, I don't really want horror in it. I've never seen the joy in mixing these two. It's such an unusual combination for me. It's like mixing football with tennis. I wouldn't want to see somebody kicking a football to somebody over a net and back and forth. That just wouldn't look very good to me. The only horror comedy I can think of that I really like is Tremors. There might be one or two others, but Tremors is the one that comes to mind. But even that film is still heavily weighted on the horror side. It's still very much a horror movie. I'd say it's like 80% horror and like 20% comedy. I do appreciate the laughs in Tremors, but if it was any more comedic than it already is, I think it would probably lose its 5-star rating in my mind. Now, unfortunately, The Monkey is way more than 20% comedy. In fact, comedy is easily the dominating genre in this film. I mean, we're talking 80% comedy maybe and 20% horror. It's like a slapstick affair. It's farce a lot of the time. It's still got the same essence of a villain from the short story, a toy monkey that's somehow via supernatural means causing people to die. But there are so many deaths in this film that I'm just numb by the halfway point, and they're all really grossly exaggerated. People dying in stupid ways that are just not realistic at all. If you've ever seen Kill Bill, the guy who gets his head cut off and then the geyser of blood that shoots out, if you remember that, All the deaths in The Monkey are just like that, completely exaggerated and over the top. It's like monkey business in a circus. You might as well have the circus music playing over these deaths, like and then some stupid thing happening with like geysers of blood everywhere, and it's like, what am I watching? Seriously. The film proceeds at first in a very summarised fashion. So, in the first half at least, we skip through several years of a child's life as people are dying all around him because he has possession of the monkey. Characters come in and out of the story. We don't get to know them properly because they're killed off so quickly. At one point, this guy shows up who looks a little bit like Elvis. He's got these massive sideburns and he's quite funny. And I thought, oh, this is a character I can get behind. One scene later, he was dead, killed in some stupid fashion. And then we're on to meeting some other new characters, and they're going to get killed really quickly as well, no doubt. And then in the middle of the movie, we suddenly jump forward like 20 years. So the kid is now all grown up because he manages to get rid of the monkey somehow at the end of the first half. I think the monkey ends up down a well, I think, or something like that. But in the second half, it's like we're starting a brand new movie with a totally different main character because he's all grown up. This doesn't work as well as it did in It, when we go back and forth between the children and the more grown up characters. Eventually, in this, they run out of material from the short story, as you would expect. So they introduce this brand new thing where there's a twin brother to the main character who decides to steal the monkey and use it as his own weapon because that's not a stupid idea. He wants to control the thing and set it going against other people. It's as daft as the Nazis nicking the Ark of the Covenant in that Indiana Jones film and expecting that to work somehow. It's utterly ridiculous. This character, this nasty brother, he's an arsehole in the first half of the movie, even as a child, and in the second half he's still an arsehole. I really didn't like him at all. This new story angle that the monkey goes down that wasn't in the original short just absolutely reeks of desperate. On a technical level, at least, this film does claw a few points back. The splatter looks good all the way through. Clearly this had quite a bit of money behind it. The soundtrack is pretty solid as well. The sound cues and things that you hear all the way through, pretty good. In fact, the sound is probably the best thing about the movie, but there's just so many deaths that I'm just numb to it. Like 20 minutes in, I don't know how many people die in this film, but it's got to be a lot. And the monkey is able to spread its poison not just among people in the nearby vicinity of the main character, but also its reach seems to basically go nationwide at some point during this film, and people are dying on the side of the road and all over the nearby town. It's like, yeah, the reach of this movie is just going too far at this point. This is not what The Monkey is meant to be at all. This film was directed by Osgood Perkins. I'm not that familiar with him. I did look into his filmography and noticed that he's the guy who directed Longlegs a couple of years ago. That was a fairly critically acclaimed film. I thought that was pretty good, although I didn't like where the story went in the final third, but nevertheless it was a very well directed film, very stylish, really good atmosphere. Maybe a film that I wouldn't mind giving a second chance to at some point. But if I'd have stopped to think about it, I would have thought whoever directed that film definitely had quite a bit of potential. So to see this guy go from something like Longlegs to The Monkey, which is not even as serious a movie as something like Piranha Double D, is desperately disappointing. Yesterday, I went and got my copy of Skeleton Crew out of the cupboard, and I'm intending now on this being the next book that I read. I'm hopefully going to start it by the end of this weekend. By the way, if you're a bit of a King aficionado, you may have noticed that this is not a copy of Skeleton Crew that dates as far back as the 90s. My original copy of this had a front cover that was like skeletons sat in a control room of what looked like a spaceship or something. Brilliant. I love that particular version, but at some point over the last 30 years, I lost it, probably in a house move, and I ended up having to buy Skeleton Crew again, but whatever. I can't wait to go back through this next week, and in particular read The Monkey and just have my faith restored in the original source material. And this book's got The Mist in it as well, which is also super cool. To be honest, I'm not having a good month when it comes to King, because the book that I'm just polishing off at the moment, I've only got a few pages left of it, is this one, Eyes of the Dragon, and it's easily the worst Stephen King book I've ever read in my life. I've never come across this one before. I decided to try it, and it is awful. It's a fantasy novel, which is not really King's thing anyway, so why he decided to do this, I've no idea. I think it came out in like the mid to late 80s. Maybe he was just trying his hand at it to see if he was good at it. Well, he isn't, at least not this type of fantasy. He's pretty good at that Dark Tower stuff, but by God, I would not recommend this. Like the most boring thing I've ever read in my life. So I just happened to have read Eyes of the Dragon in the same month that I watched The Monkey, possibly one of the worst Stephen King adaptations of all time. In fairness, there are probably a couple of the very worst Children of the Corn movies that are worse than The Monkey, but that's not saying an awful lot. So, yeah, frankly, I do not recommend this movie, but I do recommend the original short story. Right, I'm just about done with this. You know what? Sometimes when I'm watching a really bad movie, intending to review it afterwards, I'll then change my mind and not review the movie because I just don't want to do it. I'll think to myself, you know what, I'll stick that one in like a mini reviews video instead. But when it comes to The Monkey, I've sort of had to just go ahead and give it a full review anyway, because I'm doing this like Stephen King review series. A very sad position to be in. I'm sure you sympathise. But anyway, I think it's time for the Bag of Terror, so I can give my score for this, and then we can wrap things up. Here's the bag. It doesn't feel like there's an awful lot in it. Spoiler, there isn't. Just one Michael Myers carving knife out of 5. Avoid like the plague. It's simply not worth it. I really could not give a flying monkey's backside about this movie. Sorry.